All right, ready to dive deep.
Mhm.
Today we're tackling green software. And trust me, this isn't just for the techies out there.
Yeah, this is something that impacts, well, everyone, really.
Exactly. We're talking about the future of tech, the
Yeah.
future of the planet. It's all connected. And it's funny. When we think about tech, we usually picture sleek devices, cool gadgets,
Yeah.
not necessarily something that leaves a big environmental footprint, right?
Right. But those data centers that power everything, the manufacturing of all those devices, it adds up.
Big time. And that's where green software comes in. It's about rethinking how we design, build, use everything.
Yeah, it's a whole new way of thinking. And honestly, it's about time. Naveen Balani, who's super involved with the Green Software Foundation, he really lays it all out there in a recent blog post.
We'll definitely link to that in the show notes. It's a must read. But for now, let's break it down for our listeners. What is green software? I mean, is it just about writing more efficient code?
That's a great question. And it gets to the heart of what Balani's saying. It's bigger than just the code itself. It's about considering the environmental impact of software throughout its entire life cycle.
Okay, so like from the moment a developer starts typing away on their keyboard.
To the eventual disposal of the device it runs on and everything in between. Think of it like, I don't know, building a house.
Ooh, I like this analogy.
You wouldn't just slap on some solar panels and call it a day, right? You'd think about the materials, the energy efficiency, the whole shebang. It's about taking a holistic view.
Got it. So green software is like the eco-friendly building of the tech world.
Exactly. And just like with building a house, it requires a real shift in mindset, a cultural transformation.
There's that phrase again, cultural transformation. We hear it a lot, but what does it actually mean in this context?
Well, for a long time, the focus in software development has been on things like make it faster, make it sleeker, pack in more features.
Which, don't get me wrong, those are all good things.
Of course. But Balani's point is that we need to add another layer to our decision-making. How will this impact the planet?
So it's not just, will people love this new feature? It's also, will this new feature cost the Earth? Have you ever actually stopped to think about the energy it takes to run that new app you just downloaded?
Probably not. But that's exactly the kind of awareness we need to cultivate. And, even small choices can make a difference. Balani gives this really interesting example about how choosing the right programming language can actually impact energy consumption.
Wait, really? The programming language itself?
Yeah. Some languages are just more energy efficient than others. It's like choosing between a gas guzzler and a fuel-efficient car. You'll get to the same destination, but the impact on your wallet and the environment is going to be very different.
Wow, okay, so we're talking about making conscious choices at every level, even down to the code itself. I'm starting to see how this all fits together.
Exactly. And it goes way beyond just the code. Balani also dives into the importance of things like green cloud infrastructure, for example.
So like where our data is stored and how it's managed.
Exactly. Choosing data centers that are powered by renewable energy, optimizing how we use hardware. It all adds up.
It's about looking at the big picture, the whole ecosystem. I love it. All right, so we've laid some groundwork here, but I'm eager to dig into the specifics. What are some concrete steps organizations can take to start building a greener software culture?
Well, Balani outlines 6 key steps in his blog post.
6 steps. Okay, we got to hear about these.
Let's unpack them. We've touched on a few already, like efficient coding and green cloud infrastructure.
But there's more. Give me the juicy details.
There is. We'll get into those and a whole lot more right after the break.
So before the break, we were getting into the nitty-gritty of how to actually put these green software principles into action, right? It's one thing to talk about it, but how do we actually make it happen?
Right, and Balani gets into the weeds on this. One of the things he talks about is, well, it's kind of a techie term. It's called carbon awareness.
Carbon awareness. Okay. I think I get where this is going. It's like being mindful of, I don't know, like your carbon footprint, but for software.
Exactly. It's about being more strategic about when and where you're using energy-intensive software. Like imagine scheduling those big data crunching tasks for times when renewable energy sources are more readily available.
Oh, okay, I see. So instead of just crunching numbers all night long, maybe you wait until the sun's up and those solar panels are really pumping out the juice.
You got it. It's about thinking smarter, not just harder. Another point he makes is about, well, you know how everyone always wants the latest and greatest gadget?
Oh, tell me about it. New phone, right.
Right. But what if we designed software that could run efficiently on older hardware?
Okay, now that's interesting. So instead of forcing people to constantly upgrade their devices, we make the software more adaptable.
Exactly. It's about reducing e-waste, making tech more accessible. It's a win-win. And Bellani doesn't shy away from this, there are challenges.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, let's be real. Shifting an entire industry towards greener practices, that's a tall order.
For sure. He talks about this tension between, going green and those classic business goals, profit, speed, getting those shiny new products out the door.
Right, because sometimes the most sustainable option might not be the cheapest or the fastest. It's that age-old battle between the planet and the profit margin.
It's a real dilemma. But here's where things get really interesting. Bellani flips the script. He argues that those challenges, those are actually opportunities.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. Tell me more.
Consumers, we're becoming more aware, right? We want to support companies that align with their values. And increasingly, those values include sustainability.
It's that vote with your dollar thing. People want to know that their tech isn't costing the earth.
Exactly. And it's not just about attracting those eco-conscious consumers. Green software, by its very nature, it's designed to be more efficient, less resource intensive.
So it can actually save companies money in the long run. Lower energy bills, less waste.
Precisely. It's not just good for the planet, it can be good for the bottom line, too. Now, in terms of actually making this happen, Bellani outlines 6 concrete steps organizations can take.
6 steps. Okay, lay 'em on me.
We've already hit on a few. Efficient coding, green cloud infrastructure, carbon awareness. But he also dives into things like designing for durability.
Durability. So like making software that lasts, that doesn't become obsolete every 2 seconds.
Exactly. We're so used to this cycle of constant updates, but sometimes those updates, well, they come at a cost. Bellani argues that we should be designing software that can run smoothly on older hardware for as long as possible.
I love that. It's about making tech more sustainable and more accessible at the same time.
Absolutely. And it plays into another step he talks about, optimizing hardware usage. We touched on containerization earlier, how it's like creating those efficient little studio apartments out of what used to be sprawling, wasteful spaces.
Yeah, yeah. Do more with less. I like it.
Exactly. And then there's serverless architecture, which we also talked about, where you're only using resources when you actually need them, like only paying for electricity when the lights are actually on.
Smart. So we're talking about efficiency at every level, from the
Yeah.
code itself to the way we use hardware.
Exactly. But here's the thing, and I think this is so important. None of these technical solutions will really stick without a fundamental shift in mindset.
Right. It's about changing the culture. Right. So it's not just, oh yeah, we do green software here. It's about baking those values into everything you do.
Exactly. And that brings us to Bellani's final step, which I think is absolutely crucial: education.
Okay, so we're talking about training the next generation of developers to think green from day one.
Absolutely. Imagine a world where sustainability isn't just an afterthought in tech education. It's woven into the curriculum from day one.
I love that. Instead of playing catch up later, it's just how things are done.
Exactly. And it's not just about formal education either. Bellani talks about the importance of organizations like the Green Software Foundation. Remember them.
Oh yeah, the folks behind the software carbon intensity standard, right?
That's them. They're doing incredible work. They've created all these open source tools and resources. They're fostering a real sense of community around green software. And they're really leading the charge in making these practices more accessible and actionable for everyone.
It sounds like they're really putting in the work. It's encouraging to see that kind of leadership. But I think it's important to remember that this isn't just on the shoulders of the developers or these big organizations, right?
Absolutely not. We, as users, we have a role to play too.
Okay, good. Because
Right.
I was starting to feel a little bit like, well, what can I do? I'm just one person.
You're not just one person, you're a consumer, you're a user, you have a voice, and all of those choices, they add up.
All right, so how do we harness that power? What can our listeners, what can we do as individuals to make a difference? We got to unpack that right after we come back. So we've talked about the big picture, the tech companies, the developers, but at the end of the day, we're all users, right?
Yeah.
What can we do as individuals to be a part of this shift towards green software?
That's the question, isn't it? And it's easy to feel like, oh, I'm just one person, what difference can I make? But here's the thing. Every little bit counts.
I like the sound of that. So where do we start?
Well, for starters, we can be more conscious consumers. Next time you're thinking about downloading a new app, take a second to think about the company behind it. What's their stance on sustainability? Do they even talk about it?
It's like checking for that fair trade label or looking for products that are made with recycled materials.
Exactly. We vote with our dollars every day, and we can do the same thing in the tech world. Support companies that are making a genuine effort to reduce their environmental impact.
Okay, so we're putting on our conscious consumer hats.
Yeah.
What else?
Think about the devices you use. Do you really need to upgrade to the newest model every year? Could you maybe hold off for a little longer, keep your current phone or laptop going for another year or two?
Okay, that I can definitely get behind. I'm pretty sure I've still got a drawer full of old chargers and cables somewhere.
See, every little bit helps. And when you do need to upgrade, consider buying refurbished. It's a great way to save money and reduce e-waste.
Oh, that's a good point.
Uh,
I'm all about a good tech deal. So it's about being mindful of our consumption habits.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual actions either. We can also use our voices to advocate for change on a larger scale.
So, like reaching out to our elected officials,
Yeah.
supporting organizations that are pushing for more sustainable tech policies.
Exactly. The more we demand transparency and action from the companies we support from our governments, the more they'll have to listen. Remember, we have a lot more power than we think.
I love that. It's about taking action, both big and small, to create the kind of tech industry, the kind of world that we want to see.
Yeah.
This has been incredibly eye-opening, and I have a feeling our listeners are feeling pretty fired up right now.
I hope so, because at the end of the day, this isn't just about tech, it's about creating a more sustainable future for all of us.
Well said. And on that note, I want to thank our incredible guest for joining us today and for sharing such valuable insights.
It's been a pleasure.
And to all of you listening out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've learned something new, that you're feeling inspired to take action. Remember, every little bit counts.